Hello and welcome to Politics on Sunday, where we x-ray issues that dominated Nigeria's political space. Today on the program, we'll discuss ECOWAS lifting of sanctions on Niger Republic. Also, the clamor for the establishment of state police as the constitutional review process gets underway. We will also talk about the planned protest by the Nigeria Labour Congress. To be or not to be. I am Femi Akonde. Welcome.
Politics on Sunday.
Well, my guest today is Senator Shehu Sani. He represented Kaduna Central Senatorial District in the 8th National Assembly. He's a prominent and vocal member of the civil society. Always a delight to speak with you, Senator Shehu Sani. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, let's start with your constituency, the civil society. We understand the Nigerian Labour Congress is already organizing and mobilizing ahead of a planned protest on Tuesday and Wednesday. But you know, this also has generated some backlash. Some people are saying the timing is not right. The TUC is saying that these protests can be hijacked because of how fragile the fabrics of the country is at this particular time. What's your own take, and will you be joining the protest?
Thank you very much for having me in your program. Well, first of all, we must accept the fact that Nigeria is a democracy, and people have the fundamental rights and the constitutional rights to peacefully protest on issues or matters they feel strongly about. But particularly on this, I think there are issues that need to be clarified. What we know on the ground was that the Labour has been in negotiation with the federal government.
Indeed.
On matters of wage increase and other facilities and provisions which government is making to assuage the sufferings and hardship being faced by the Nigerian workers particularly. But what I and many people don't understand is that whether that negotiation has been exhausted and whether the Labour has pulled out of that, and whether this protest that is coming is as a result of the breakdown of that dialogue, which I don't understand. I think before you call out people to the street, there is a need to be transparent in terms of telling them what is actually going on, so that if they will join the protest, they need to. And if I am not mistaken, on 3 occasions, Labour has withdrawn or suspended strike action because of negotiations that are still going on. And we have also seen how workers have testified to have received some, their accounts have been credited in the last 6 months. And also we have seen cases where food is being released, and several actions are also being taken to address this problem. But I need further clarification, because when atmosphere is so charged at this point and you call for a protest, you must know that a protest being called by Nigerian Labour Congress is not going to be simply about workers. There is the tendency and the possibility of the public joining such protest because the issues that are being raised also affect their lives. And what provisions have you made to ensure that this does not go out of hand? So I will prefer that the Labour that is leading this gives us further clarification as regards to the level of that negotiation. Because you can't be negotiating at the same time protesting.
Yeah.
So if you are protesting, you go on protest, and if you are negotiating, you first negotiate and exhaust the avenues of negotiation, then you can go on protest. So
okay,
this
let's
is
talk
my
about
own.
the timing. Is there ever a good time to protest, or is this indeed a bad time to protest?
Well, constitutionally and legally, you can protest at any time. But when you take cognizance of the fragility of the Nigerian state, the atmosphere as it is now, and the possibility of this peaceful protest going out of hand, I think whatever steps you are going to take, you also have to make sure that what you are trying to achieve doesn't end out becoming something else or turning into something else. So for now, if it's the labor, if it's the opposition parties that are leading protest, well, I know that they don't have to sit down and negotiate on workers' rights and whatever. But if it's labor, we should know that it's about workers. And once you have 300 or 200 workers on the street, for a country like Nigeria, Sudan should be something we should be very careful not to become. And whatever aspect we do, whatever government is doing, and whatever opposition is doing, or whatever the labor is doing, I think peace should be paramount. And then the rights of people to protest should be respected. But what is most important also, the unity of the country. So whether labor should protest or not, I think there is a need for clarification to the people or against.
Well, Senator, what Labour is protesting for is the prevailing economic hardship in the country. They want to pile pressure on governments at all levels to give particular attention and give prominence to addressing these hardship faced by Nigerians in terms of providing more palliatives, the transport system that was promised by the federal government during that negotiation between both parties and all of that. But you know, some people are saying that it appears as if Labour is unfairly blaming the federal government for the country's woes and not looking at state governors who a lot of people say are now receiving bigger allocations since after the subsidy removal.
Well, it is important that we remind ourselves, how did we arrive at where we are today? Buhari was in power for 8 years. If he had been able to implement far-reaching economic reforms that addresses the structural defect of the Nigerian economy, we couldn't have been where we are today. For 8 years, he had the opportunity to remove subsidy. He didn't. For 8 years, he had the opportunity to end the subsidy of Naira by using $1 billion every quarter to subsidize them. He couldn't. So, for the present president, he had two options. One is to go the normal way, subsidizing petroleum product with trillions of Naira and pumping $1.5 billion to show up the value of the Naira, and then continue on that line and be loved by people, be praised by people, while the country sink into abyss. Because we can't continue to pay subsidy and subsidize Naira. We can only do it with money. And we reach a point a year ago that we have to borrow to subsidize, and we also have to subsidize petroleum product and borrow to subsidize the Naira. The second option for him is to use the first year of his leadership and implement reforms of which that has a limited period of pains and hardship, and of which the benefits and the comfort it will generate later will be far-reaching and enduring. So he chose the latter. Now, Labour are going to protest. The demands they made are legitimate. But it's important we tell ourselves the truth. The process of this removal of subsidy is being shared to the 36 state governors in the country. We have seen how federal allocation has moved from 5 to 600 billion to almost 1 trillion plus. So there is more money in the states and there is more money in local government. And there's need for Nigerians to know that this country is called Federal Republic, not a unitary republic. So it means that the resources is shared according to 3 tiers of government. But I've seen people only interested in holding the federal government to account and not holding their state governors or the local government chairman to account. And again, it's important for the state and the local government to know that if this spark leads to a bushfire, it will spare no one, whether you are a local government chairman or a governor. So it is incumbent on them to use the resources that is allocated to them to address the problems of hunger and poverty in this society. We are not a poor country. We are a resource-rich country, but we need serious economic reform so that we don't go on this path. Nigeria has been living a lie. We have been living on falsehood for a very long time. So this is a moment of truth. And there is no better time to implement economic reform than the first to second year of your governance. And then at the end of the day, people will see it. So it is also important for those in the position of leadership to know that the economy should be about people. And when you have anger, you have crisis at hand. So there is the urgent need. The demands of labor are genuine, but will protest solve the problem? That is the issue. What of a situation where everything goes out of hand? We should look at the countries that have failed. These are all fundamental symptoms that we have seen, and I think we should be very careful in this aspect.
Yes, so let's talk about ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, its latest decision to lift sanctions on Niger Republic. Some critics are saying it appears there is no consequence for bad behavior after all.
Well, first of all, the decision by the ECOWAS to impose economic sanction on Niger Republic, Burkina Faso, and Mali was fundamentally wrong, because ECOWAS is an economic union. Even though there is the political or democratic aspect of it that was introduced. The changeover of government in those countries had happened. What should have been the next thing to do was to continue to negotiate till you have a tentative agreement on a transition to civil rule. Military rule is not new to the West African sub-region or to Nigeria. We have had our own fair share of military rule that has lasted for almost 3 decades. And in that period, we were not threatened by any African country, and no sanction was imposed on us. It was Nigerians that decided that they wanted an end to military rule. And we organized protest, civil disobedience campaign, and civil resistance, and we worked hard to restore democratic order in our country. People like me went to jail in the struggle for democracy. Many were forced to exile. Many died in that struggle. Now, it was an internal resistance against tyranny at that very time. Now, we should have supported civil groups in Niger, in Chad or Burkina Faso and Mali to ensure that pressure is mounted to restore democratic order. But our response as a sub-region was faulty. All that it did was to infuriate the military junta and for them to use that as the basis for mobilizing support for their people. The overthrow of those governments, those civilian governments, was not done because of ECOWAS. There were internal issues, and there are also issues beyond the continent. The overbearing influence of France in those countries, the exploitation of their resources, the failure of their own former colonial power to assist them tackle the problems of terror, and the complete misgovernance on the side of the civilian political class in those countries all contributed to the fall of democracy. So it's not about simply the military took up gun and take over power. The necessary conditions were all created by them. And we can't go and implement regime change. We're in a very weak position to do that. When you talk of ECOWAS, 90% of the powers and strength of ECOWAS is Nigeria. If you talk of use of the military to change our power in those countries, it was even wrong for that statement to come in. And the issue of economic sanction, who are going to suffer? It's not going to be the military rulers, the ministers, the head of the junta. They're not going to be the ones to suffer. It's the masses in the country. If we cut electricity to Niger Republic, it's the poor people in Niger. And let us put it this way. Our relationship with Niger Republic is not simply about history, about culture, about region, about neighborliness, but it's also about existence. There are over 100,000 Nigerians that have been displaced from Zamfara, Sokoto, and Kaduna State and have been hosted in Niger Republic today. Niger Republic has seriously contributed to Nigeria's fight against terror. Boko Haram was Nigeria's problem, but it spread to Niger, it spread to Chad, it spread to Cameroon. And those countries have been helping us to fight these terrorists. So what do we gain when we impose sanctions? If Niger Republic collapses today, it will affect Nigeria. So to me, it's a welcome development that the sanctions have been lifted and that it's left for the people of Niger to decide on what to do. In Nigeria, we have seen people have risen up. Committee for Defense of Human Rights was set up in the 80s. Civil Liberties Organization was set up in the 80s. The June 12 mass resistance came with Abiola. Many people fought. Many were jailed. Many were exiled. This was how we fought to restore democracy to our country. And this is how they should be able to do it. What do you do? To impose sanctions that will make the regime to collapse? It never works anywhere. So we did mistake, and we did a mistake, and now we have corrected it. And I think this is the best way to go. Next is to continue to negotiate, because military regimes have also their problems. Those countries have been impoverished, have been exploited by France for generations. So they're taking back their country, taking back the resources of their country, standing against imperialism and neo-colonialism. And then we are now found ourselves uncomfortably on the side of being pro-imperialism and pro-neo-colonialism. I think it's a wrong thing. I don't want to be associated with a country that is on the side of the oppressor. I want to identify myself with Africans that want to be in charge of their continent, that want to take back their country. For now, ECOWAS has taken the right steps. The next step is to continue negotiation to make sure that they are back to the fold. We have more to do with them and more in common with them than simply the issue of democracy in their own country, which is their own fundamental national matters which they need to address.
Okay, Senator, let's switch gears now from military takeovers in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali to the call for a change in the system of government from presidential to parliamentary system of government in Nigeria. You are quoted to have said it's an exercise in futility, but it appears this move is gaining momentum. We have seen this group of lawmakers move from one place to the other with their advocacy, and it's getting support from some prominent Nigerians. Don't you see the possibility of a change in the system of government?
Well, you see, in this country, we have an attitude of always trying something and then coming back to it and then going forward with it. Before then, let's look at it globally. If you are talking of a monarchy, it's working in Saudi Arabia, it's working in Qatar, it's working in Kuwait, it's also working in Britain. Parliamentary monarchy is also working in Netherlands, working in Spain. They have kings. and they have parliaments, and they have 24-hour electricity. Their people are not poor. Infrastructures are all over. There is development. There is high standard of living, and the system is working. If you are talking about a presidential system, it's working in United States, it's working in Argentina, it's working in Brazil. So to me, now we have reached a certain point. After 24 years of practicing this, we now become nostalgic that the solution lies in the past and not in the future. Let us be very serious about these things here. Nigeria's problem is structural. We need to restructure this country politically, restructure this country economically, and tell ourselves the home truth. Our democracy is very expensive. We have very little resources, 200 million people. We have 109 senators and 360 members of House of Reps, and significant amount of national budget is used to fund our legislature. And then we ask ourselves this: with the meager resources we have, we divided ourselves into 36, while China, with about 1.3 billion people, they have 19 provinces. Now you look at it. We have 36 state house of assembly with speakers and all sorts of portfolios, and we service this thing here. So the cost of governance structurally is too high on the Nigerian state.
Senator, there is a constitutional review process that is coming up soon. Maybe that is what they want to use as a window to explore that possibility of a change in the system of government.
Okay. We have been having constitutional review since 1999. Every National Assembly that comes into office is set up a constitutional review committee with the Deputy Senate President as chair, and some billions have been allocated, and then town hall meetings are held according to all this geopolitical collation of public opinion, and then it's done down the line, and before the constitution is seriously passed for approval, another election has come to the play. So let us now watch and see whether this one will be different. I am for constitutional amendment, but the amendment should be thorough in such a way that we do it in such a way that governance will be affordable and will be service to the people, and also will be in the interest of the people. So I am for constitutional amendment.
In the whole process of constitutional amendment, one issue that will be prominent will be the creation of state police. That became a topical issue when President Bola Tinubu met with state governors to discuss the state of the country in terms of ensuring food security and also security of lives and property. They are beginning to tinker with the idea of establishing a state police. Do you see these as really a clear solution to handling insecurity, especially within states and regions?
The challenge is that the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, and Nigerian Police and Civil Defense cannot solve. Is this the one that state police will solve? I ask you this question. And then secondly, you have seen the way the state governors manage SICOM, in the State Independent Electoral Commission. What do you think of them in control of the police? First of all, giving state governors the powers of setting up a police, you will simply set the state police against the federal police. And most of the members of that police force in the state will be members of the ruling party of the states, and armed thugs of those governors are the ones who are going to be in the state. They are going to be used against opposition, the opposition in the state. They are going to be used against non-indigenous in the state. They are going to be used against opponents of the governor. They are going to be used to rig elections. But there are consequences. So to me, I think this is a very wrong time to do that. And if the government wants to abdicate, the federal government wants to abdicate responsibility to the police, to the state police, well, they can do that. But we are all going to pay the price for it.
All right, then a fine place to leave it. It's always a delight speaking with you, Senator Shehu Sani. lawmaker that represented Kaduna Central in the 8th National Assembly. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, then. Well, that's all on the program this week. Do remember you can see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. Also, subscribe, like, and share. I am Femi Akonde. See you next time.